This is Richard with JR, and this is the sixth in a series of videos regarding how to set up a new model helicopter in the JR T44 transmitter using the TAGS Mini 3-axis flybarless gyro system. In the last video, we discussed throttle curves and set up 3 different sample curves. One for normal flight mode, a flat curve for use with ESCs with internal governors, and a smooth curve for use with ESCs and flybarless units without governors. In this video, we're going to set up 3 sample pitch curves, one for use in normal mode, one with reduced pitch around center in order to make the helicopter less sensitive vertically in the hover, and a standard diagonal 0, 50, 100% curve for use in aerobatics. We're going to start by turning the transmitter on, pressing the L button, which will take us into the function list menu. Now we're going to scroll down to the center, right below throttle curve, which we saw in the last video, to pitch curve, highlight the words pitch curve, and click the roller. Once again, we have our all servos hold screen. We're going to click the roller for yes. And now we're into the pitch curve menu. Now this is identical to the throttle curve menu, with the exception that this one will affect the pitch of the helicopter, the collective pitch. Now we've got the same table on the right, and we have the 3 default positions for the pitch curve. Position low, which is our low throttle stick, 50%, which is our mid throttle 6, position 1, and position 8 for the high throttle switch. Now this is a standard 0, 50, 100% curve, and a lot of people just use this whatever flight mode they're in. I am one of those people. Now with a negative 11 or 12 degrees available at full negative pitch, there is the possibility of accidentally slamming the helicopter on the ground. A lot of beginners and a lot of seasoned flyers in their normal mode when they come into land, they want to reduce the amount of negative pitch right before they set down. So in order to do that, we've scrolled over to position low. We're going to click the roller, and we're going to start scrolling to the right. Now you'll notice the curve, the left of the curve for position low, is moving up. Now ideally we want this at a negative 3 or 4 degrees. We want a little bit of negative pitch so that when we set the helicopter down, we can stick it on the pad or the landing surface, but not enough negative pitch that there's a tendency to slam the ship down on the pad. So arbitrarily, I've just set it for 30 here. You can either set this with a pitch gauge to get the desired 3 or 4 degrees, or you can just lift the helicopter off and keep changing the position low percentage until you get it where you're comfortable. So we've scrolled to 30, and we're going to click the roller. Now we have a sharp bend in our collective pitch curve, which we really don't want. So as we did back in the throttle curve, we're going to scroll down where it says EXP for Expo. It's turned off. I'm going to click the roller. Now we have a nice smooth curve without adding additional points in the curve. Like the throttle curve, we can have up to 7 points in this curve. And again, here for this curve, we've used the default 3. For the next curve, we're going to add 2 more for a total of 5. Now this curve we're going to set up is going to have reduced collective sensitivity around center. I've seen many posts, and I've talked to quite a few people who, especially when learning, find the helicopter very sensitive to collective pitch movement in the hover. So we're going to address that here by adding 2 points to the curve and making the curve a little flatter around center. Now, as I start to increase the stick, you'll notice the word add shows up in the lower left corner. I'm going to bring this up to about 35%, and you can see, and we haven't talked about this yet, but at the bottom of the graph at the right, it says in 36. So my throttle stick is set at 36%, out 36. The output is also 36%. Where it says add here by the function key, I'm going to click. Now I'm going to raise it up to 65%, which would be the same distance from the center or zero setting as the 35% was. And I'm also going to press add. I now have a 5-point collective pitch curve. Now, I'm going to move the throttle stick down just to shut off the countdown timer we set up earlier. Now, if you look at the graph, you'll see we have a 5-point collective pitch curve. I'm going to scroll down to position 1, which is no longer our center point. I'm going to click where it says out. I'm going to start scrolling the roller to the right. I'm going to set this to about 45%. I'm going to click the roller. Now I'm going to scroll down to our point 3, and I'm going to reduce that by the same amount. You'll notice the center of the curve is much flatter, which will give us less collective sensitivity around center. But you'll also notice we have a jagged curve. So once again, we scroll down to where it says EXP, the word off, highlight, and click. And now we have a nice smooth curve. Now, you can make the 2 points 1 and 3 on this graph, you can bring them closer together, and you can raise and lower them. It's a good idea to raise and lower them by the same amount, but if the need arises, you can make them slightly different if you want to. The last curve we're going to do, we don't really have to change anything. This is a standard 0, 50, 100% collective pitch curve, and this is what I think probably most people use for aerobatics. This is certainly the one I use all the time. We don't need to invoke expo because there's a straight diagonal line, and this gives us fully symmetrical pitch. So if we're inverted, we're upright, the collective feel will be exactly the same. Now these are sample curves that we set up both for the throttle and the collective curves. When we get into physical helicopter setup in a later video, we'll touch on this a little more. In the next video, we're going to set up the transmitter for XBus A operation for use of the Tags Mini. We're going to start the G-Tune application program. We're going to change the setting in the Tags Mini so that it will recognize the signal from the XBus receiver as opposed to the default remote antenna. And we're going to select the channels for the gains for elevator and aileron in the Tags Mini that we did in the T44 earlier. Thank you.